different geography, different climate, different life. That's how ecosystems are built. Welcome! For this episode, I thought I'm just gonna introduce you a little bit into the world itself. Like, not Pandora as a whole, but because the game is called Frontiers of Pandora, the game takes place in, I can show you, the Western Frontiers. So, these are the Western Frontiers. It is definitely towards the west of where the areas where the movies took place. So, I can assume there's maybe an ocean here. Not know for sure, but I'll come to that in a bit. But the other areas, the in-game areas, takes place towards this side. Ignore those other two areas, they're for the DLC. May do that at some point anyways. So basically on the part that we can visit and take a look at, we've got three very distinct geographical locations that are showcasing their own different biomes. So each of these areas, they have like little biomes with different setup of plants too, which, mimics Earth, of course. So we got the clouded forest here, we have the upper plains, and then the Kinglor Forest. For each of these areas, there of course are people that have adapted to living there, and the nature and the structure and the geography is distinct between all of these three. These are just the big areas because you've got multiple smaller areas in there as well. So starting with Cloud Forest here, it is mountainous. It's mostly set up of trees that look very similar to a mix out of a big mushroom or scaly mushroom and pine trees. It's very foggy, which would make sense because you have multiple big mountains in the middle, but you've got this area of mountains that's separating the plains. And as you do have on Earth in real life settings, if there would be an ocean here, that would make sense because the cold air filled with, wet, sometimes warm, depending on, what the ocean temperature. Pandora is generally very warm. They would fill up and the clouds would travel and go all this way. And then they would get stuck here at the mountains. And then it would rain down. So you have a rain down. Technically it's a rainforest, this area too. You can have rainforests that are not tropical. So a rainforest doesn't always have to be tropical. Just think of the rainy forests that you have in Canada at the west coast. So they're called rainforests too, but they are not tropical. So this is kind of like a highland area too. It's not like a flat plateau area. It's very mountainous and rocky. Then you have, of course, the upper plains here. As the name suggests, the plains are inspired, of course, by the Great Plains. Those big grasslands, steppes and plain areas, and plains and savannas. It's a bit too lush for a savanna because I'm pretty sure the clarification is that they are more deserty or half deserty and really dry. So the upper plains, like in general, the theme is lots of water. So all of the areas we've seen in this game, or we're going to see, and in-game, they're usually very water-rich. So you have those streams going around and those big lakes, but you don't really have much of the big trees you're going to see in the other areas. You do have, they're big, but they're more like shrub-like, but they're huge shrubs, of course. But other than that, it's mostly, or just primarily, grassland. Then, of course, you have the Kinglor Forest. The Kinglor Forest, you don't see it that well, but it is lowland. So it's in the lower areas. All those two areas are higher up. So Clouded Forest is really, really rocky and hilly. The plains are very smooth textured-wise, so they're still like a high plateau comparable. And then, of course, you have the Kinglor Forest. It's your typical rainforest, lowland rainforest. I'd say probably comparable from the way the trees are moving around the place, with, of course, the big rainforests we have in around the equator on Earth, which is, of course, Australia, Asia, of course, Africa, and, of course, the Amazon rainforest. But this one is a lot of wetland and also like the rainforest in the same setting, so it would be probably like a tropical delta. But I will now show you a little walking tour through them. I'm not going to go into too much detail, so I probably think maybe I'm going to do that for another episode. But I'll just, show you real quick what it is you can expect by just flying through. But keep in mind, all of these areas, they have lots of little biomes in them as well, and they've got different animals there, different plants, and it's just like all in total different structures, which is really fascinating and interesting to explore. So we are now in the clouded forest. As you can see, looks like coniferous trees, Then we've got some of the big fern here. And of course here you will see the little bioluminescence again, especially at night. It's very mushroomy, so we've got mushrooms here, type of mushrooms, type of fungus, whatever. We have fern here, different types. And then we've got those trees. You can, as in the other thing, you can always check it and it will tell you what type it is, and you can collect stuff too. So, the forest pine cone. There's lots of nature going around, but this is just one of the biomes in the clouded forest. But that is the general view. You've got a very foggy ferns, those coniferous-like trees, different variations of mushroom-like structures, more fern, more fungus. So that's just the overall picture and setting of the clouded forest. Another area of the clouded forest, it is a bit more open. You have generally more plain in between. You can see the big mountains in the background. But still, even though there's now more grass and open spaces, there's still the overall theme of having ferns in different variations and sizes, and mushrooms. And of course still the coniferous trees. Some of them are kind of big, as you can see here, where the people made their home in those fallen tree trunks. You can still see different animals flying around. I personally find those trees over there very interesting because they are basically redwood trees. And the nature here is in general very interactive. You've got some, I think they're called termite flies. They are like a very mix, I guess, out of termites and wasps because they tend to be aggressive. And then we've got the Pandora redwoods. They are pretty massive. Still more to show you about the clouded forest, because there's many different biomes. So we've seen a little bit of this one, and we've seen a little bit of this one. I'm thinking about showing that as another video, but for now we are going to head into the plains over here. Now we are in the middle of the plains. As you can see, here is one of the settlements, and you can see those very bent trees because in this world the plains are very windy. So you have lots of grassland, you've got those shrubs. In the background you can see some higher trees which are interestingly behind those rocks, which would make sense because they are more protected by the wind. I'm standing in the middle of their path apparently. You have different types of reeds and lots of grass. And you've got some trees, but this is near the water area, as you can see. Built a settlement right next to the water. It's a big settlement. If we go over this way, we can see a little bit more of the water area towards along the shore. So the water is very shallow. It looks like a typical steppe, or shallow steppe lake, or it's going to be a lake further up, but this is just a stream. So this area is typically influenced, of course, by the plains. The Navi here are traversing mostly on horseback. So the dire horses are there. I mean, they do have Ikan too, and they've got the culture with those kites they like, but it is primarily dire horses, which is very influenced by, of course, all of the horse people that have existed over the centuries. So they're also very in tune, and here you can see like nice rocky outcrops. They are in an area with petrified trees, which they're really pretty. So this area, you can see them down there too, still open grassland, still lots of grass and reeds, but now you also see the remnants, or the petrified remnants of those trees. So there was an ancient forest here at some point, but they petrified and they are gigantic. So those trees were huge. They're a lot bigger than of the trees that were visible so far that we've tracked around in Pandora, or we're going to see in the Kinglor Forest, or even the clouded forest. So, still very open, still very grassy, still windy. And you can see the floating mountains, which are everywhere, because they're like a staple of Pandora. So now you've seen two areas of the wind, or of the plains. Again, very windy, very open. I'm gonna show you again more in detail, or I have planned, So for now, we're gonna leave the plains, so you've got the major instinct of what to expect. And now we are going to go into the Kinglor Forest here, which has multiple different areas, of course, and I will show you a few of them. To Kinglor Forest. As with the other two areas, I started at the... Yeah, they're really angry with the sky people. As with the other areas, I started at the main settlement, which in this case is more or less smack in the middle on the big tree, called the home tree. As you can see, it's a big tree, which is probably one of the still living variations of one of the big tree stumps that we've seen in the petrified forest. So as you can see, compared to the clouded forest, it's much more, that you could compare with broadleaf trees, so no conifers, but lots of the trees you would see in a rainforest, tropical rainforest, of course. You've got those banana-like looking trees, and then of course you've got those big trees with the leafy greens. You've got some moss on the stones, of course. You've got... Oh, there's more wildlife. Moving around. Very colorful, so compared to the clouded forest, it's way more colorful. But this area is actually kind of open, so it's not completely forest, because in some parts of the rainforest, tropical rainforest on Earth, if you walk through, you cannot see the day. But you've got those different types of trees, different types of animals, of course, very lush, very green. Now we're in an area of the Kinglor Forest that has those funny looking trees that look like a mix out of a bamboo and those monstera plants that probably most of you have already seen or not. High up, we've got those beautiful floating islands, rock mountains. They are, of course, again, staple of Pandora, and they all got their own biomes. But for now, you see the comparison. Those broadleaf trees are getting sparse, and these more leathery, kind of like plastic-looking trees are taking over. Different types of trees or plants in general, although they might be some type of fungus. I don't know, it is really hard to tell. But as you can see, the biomes are really different, and they get really dense on the ground floor. Of course, everywhere on this area you have people. You can see here, going towards the other area, so there is a river here. Plant life is very interactive here. So you have the river, so in generally all of the frontiers, they do not starve for water. Fresh water, that is. Here you can see some other types of trees. They have becoming these lichen, or also this, I think it's called Spanish moss, although it's not a moss, but belongs to the group that also the pineapples belong to, bromeliads. Again, very rocky, but very wet. Lots of different areas. So towards the end, I just wanted to show you the part where this area of the Kinglor Forest meets this water area. It does look like could be some sort of salt water, although I do think it is fresh water. It could be like an inland, or maybe the map has... See, we don't really have an official big map that shows all of the areas, but because of the main movies taking place towards the east and there being an ocean there, I'm going to assume it's some sort of big freshwater lake, comparably to maybe the big lakes are, of course, the African Rift Valley lakes, or the big lakes in North America. So this area, very wet. We got those lily pads that are really inspired by some of the big that we can go and see them if we want to, in the Amazon. And if we go up there, again, very wet. These are the wetlands. So you have those mangrove-like trees. We do have mangroves on Earth too. The trees are pretty amazing because they form like a natural protection for all of the little creatures that live in the water. So usually water is dangerous because they can go from, both from the top side birds can get you, from the low sides bigger things can get you, and from the sides other things can also get you. So babies, for example, some shark babies or young sharks, they like to hide in those mangroves. So mangroves are really important for being like a nursery for babies, baby animals. Now we swim, can do a little dive underwater. It's very beautiful. Same color scheme going on as up on the dry land, of course. We still see some of the leafy trees. If we look there, there's the forest. The forest is getting denser over there. The trees are getting bigger. So these areas with those big trees and shading, they're like typical for tropical rainforests because they're very dense. It's very difficult for light to reach the ground just because the grounds are so dense. So we have, of course, so many different looking colors. Mushrooms again. They are smaller though than the ones that we've seen at the Kinglor Forest. So here, mix out of grassland, wetlands, lots of lily pads and other plants that go this way. And of course, we've got different fauna too, which if I go in, it's going to take, forever. So I just wanted to show you a few of the areas of Pandora that we can see here in the frontiers. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm thinking about going a little bit more into detail. And with that, I'm going to have in some of the future videos. And with that, I'm going to leave you. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed it. And for now, take care, and I will see you the next time. Bye!